Hi, my name is Jane Ruby, and I'm a Vice President of Operations of the League of Women Voters of Chicago, and also the chair of the Centennial State of the City event. Thank you for joining us for our Centennial celebration. We have a full program for you this evening. In the pre-program, you'll see 3 League videos. The first comes from the State League, and it's a general history of the League of Women Voters. The next is the year in review from the 2018 annual meeting. We thought it would be fun for you all to see one of the 100 years we've been doing our thing. And in the last video, it's also from 2018, and it's a showcase of what the League of Women Voters of Chicago is all about. Our main event will start at 6 p.m. While you are waiting, please consider taking a moment to donate to the League of Women Voters of Chicago. There are 2 ways to donate. You can click the button below on the event page or text Centennial 2020 to 41444. That's Centennial 2020 to 41444. This is an historic year for the League of Women Voters, and I'm so excited to have you join us for this celebration. I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Allison Hout, and it is my honor to serve as the president of the League of Women Voters of Illinois. Thank you for joining us for the State of the City event as we mark the 100th anniversary of the League of Women Voters of Chicago. The nonpartisan work of the League of Women Voters of Chicago has been critical to ensuring that in the 3rd largest city in our nation, all voices are heard, that all persons have the opportunity to be informed and active participants in their government. Thank you to the League of Women Voters of Chicago for the dedication and devotion, the talent and the person power, the partnerships across our city to empower voters and make democracy work. Tonight, while we commemorate an entire century of achievements in education and activism critical to protecting and advancing the right to vote, we also acknowledge that many were left behind, and we recognize that still today, not all are included. This drives us to sharpen our focus to work tirelessly for equity and inclusion, to continue to work for elections that are free, fair, and accessible to all. As we step off into our 2nd century with the League of Women Voters of Chicago, let's take a look across the 100 years of the League to see the progress and to set our sights on the future. Congratulations, League of Women Voters of Chicago. We know you have what it takes.
To the wrongs that need resistance, to the right that needs assistance, to the future and the distance, give yourselves. Illinois was on the forefront of women's activism, becoming the first state east of the Mississippi River to pass a law that granted women the right to vote in presidential elections. Through coalition and partnership, the power of the League was not one person, but the collective group of women advocates like Grace Wilbur Trout, Jane Addams, Maude Wood Park, and many others whose contributions were an indelible part of our history. But the League's past is far from perfect. The price of women's suffrage was the exclusion and eviction of women of color. Women like Alpha Suffrage Club founder Ida B. Wells were forced to continue their work outside of the efforts of the white women's suffrage movement, led in part by the League. But the future of the League would work to right those wrongs. Its members would eventually open their minds to the struggles of women of color and acknowledge the intersection of their fight for justice. In 1946, in response to World War II, the rise of women in the workforce, and larger numbers of women enrolling into higher education institutions, the National League of Women Voters became the League of Women Voters of the United States. The League began to modernize with a new and revised emphasis on voter services with updated guidelines on nonpartisanship and candidate forums. Local leagues gained in recognition with only one league in a community, giving more opportunities for stronger local studies, action on every level of government, and tailored response to the needs of each neighborhood. The League took the foundation of its success with the suffrage and women's rights movements to help build coalitions and partnerships with other organizations on emerging issues. In the spirit of common good and community, the League was able to expand its focus and to bring its fight to key legislation and issues like the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The League was not always at the forefront of every movement, but it was always willing and able to stand in solidarity to right the wrongs of history. The passion of the past continues into the future. Local leagues and their members have continued to fight and stand strong in the role of advocates for informed participation in government. The League has helped to champion Voting Rights Act amendments of 1982 underwriting 150 debates on every level of government. The National Voter Registration Act in May of 1993, known affectionately as the Motor Voter Law. Bipartisan Campaign Finance Reform Act of 2002, otherwise known as the McCain-Feingold Act. Renewing the Voting Rights Act. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. The Equal Rights Amendment, the League joined and eventually led the fight for the ERA. As the League once served as a nerve center for women's advocacy in 1920, it continues to be an integral part of the future. It is our work that has made it possible for women to have a seat at the table. And we aren't done yet. We honor our past, however imperfect, but we look to a more perfect future. The League continues to evolve, inspiring younger generations to get civically involved, adding more people in our democracy, and advocating for a community legislative agenda. Today, the League of Women Voters of Illinois is working on creating fair maps through the redistricting process, engaging disenfranchised groups to help empower them with civic education and advocacy, fighting voter suppression, advocating for affordable housing, gun violence prevention, educating on the fair tax referendum, and much, much more. We envision a democracy where every person has the desire, the right, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate. This is only our first 100 years. Join us for the next 100. Become an advocate. Become a donor. Become a volunteer. Become a member. Become a part of the League.
Hello, my name is Matthew Briere, and I am the editor and production manager for this show. I had done an internship with the League of Women Voters of Chicago in 2019, and I loved the organization. So when they approached me about editing this, I was thrilled to be a part about it and really excited. What I'm presenting right now is a year in review I made for 2019. It's a collection of photos and events that the League attended. Please enjoy.
Hi, I'm Esther Callan. I've been a member of the League of Women Voters for almost 40 years. I was president of the Chicago League from 2006 up to 2010. The following video will explain to you who we are.
The League is a place where people can go and it's trusted and will give folks a feeling of there's a history, there's a reputation there.
I came to the League of Voters right after World War II. My mother was a good friend of Margaret Sanger, and Margaret Sanger wanted to open some birth control clinics in Chicago, which was illegal. And her friend, of course, was Jane Addams. And Jane Addams encouraged her to open a birth control clinic near Hull House. So my mother was out there on Halsted Street, distributing leaflets. And the police picked her up. She just felt it was important to use your rights and let people know what's right and what's wrong.
We called the League our graduate school before we went to graduate school. Almost all women who ran for office came out of the League.
I had joined because my kids were going to be going to the Chicago Public Schools, which they did. I learned how to read a budget because we looked at the budget of the Chicago Public Schools and got hooked.
I'm a retired nurse. My main focus was adequate health care for people. That was something that was important to me, so then after I retired, I joined the League.
The first meeting I ever went to was a briefing, and it was absolutely mind-blowing. I learned so much.
I've always been kind of a political junkie, and it was a very interesting way to learn a lot about policy.
I was 20 and I joined the League. I was with the League for all the time until I became a state representative. And I have been in office during parts of 5 decades and 2 centuries.
I recently ran for Congress in the 5th Congressional District. I joined the League last year, a few months after the 2016 election.
I'm originally from New York City, and it just kind of was a perfect fit for me to have the League as part of, my journey of being in Chicago and, especially learning more about politics in Chicago.
This League has 2 arms, so to speak. One arm is voter service, voter registration and providing information before elections and that type of thing. The other aspect, and part of the reason it was founded, was to have people know the issues and to take stands on issues and to lobby.
One of the things that I enjoyed the most and was most involved in was the study of the 1970 Constitution for the League in Highland Park. And then I was asked to help run the referendum for the city to adopt the final product. And I went all over making speeches about what was in the new Constitution.
One of my goals has been teaching people how to get what they need from government. And we went around the state educating the public. We developed 4 workshops. They were how to lobby, how to run for office, your local government, and your constitutional rights.
I remember going to some meetings with members of the state legislature, and representing the League there.
In 1984 was a presidential election, and we had PolitiFest. We rented a stage, we had music, so the candidates could stand up there and they had 3 minutes, 5 minutes to talk.
Through the course of being involved with the League, I've been all over the city, talking to people about voting. I've actually gone into Cook County Jail with Chicago Votes and done voter registration. And I've also worked on the Ida B. Wells Street renaming project. We ended up having 50 other organizations across Chicago sign on in support of the project.
What the League gives you is an opportunity to study, to come to consensus, to truly understand issues, to figure out what a problem is and how then to solve it.
Some of the issues are always there, like schools or public education, that has been there forever, but also housing. Healthcare is one that is from the 1920s.
After the 2016 election, we had a dramatic increase in membership, and one of the things is that we were there with a lot of expertise because we had some hardcore long-term members who had been working on this stuff for a long, long time, and so we were able to put people to work right away. I'm not sure that our foremothers knew that we would still be around 100 years later, and I'm not sure that they realized how needed we would still be.
Despite all the craziness that can happen in politics, that you still have that fundamental grounding and understanding of like the things that are important, like making sure people are registered, that they understand their rights as registered voters, that feels like a safe space.
I joined the membership committee and started talking about diversity. People are thinking about immigration in a different way. People are thinking about religious minorities in a different way. And now we've got this committee, and I'm now working on doing aldermanic forums throughout the city.
Because of the growth of membership, we are so much more capable of doing so many different things, and we are doing so many different things. The League is more important than ever.
I'm glad to see that so many people have joined it. People have found out about the League of Women Voters.
Hi, it's Jane again. The program will be starting soon, but feel free to check out the link to the program book below on the event page, and also enjoy the following montage of program book designs from past State of the Cities.
Good evening. My name is Ann Jamison, and it is my honor to serve as the president of the League of Women Voters of Chicago. I'm thrilled to welcome you to this year's State of the City. Thank you all for being here today to celebrate the League's 100th anniversary. It is especially fitting to hold this celebration here in Chicago, where in February 1920, the League of Women Voters was officially formed. Founded 6 months before the 19th Amendment to the Constitution was ratified, co-founder Carrie Chapman Catt defined our organization's purpose as to unite all existing organizations of women who believe in its principles. It is not to lure women from partisanship, but to combine them in an effort for legislation which will protect coming movements, which we cannot even foretell, from suffering the untoward conditions which have hindered for so long the coming of equal suffrage. Are the women of the United States big enough to see their opportunity? In the century since its founding, the League of Women Voters has helped prove that the women of our nation were and are up to the task of safeguarding our democratic institutions and traditions. Time and again, the League has played a crucial part in protecting and improving our democratic process. After World War II, the League helped lead the effort to establish the United Nations. In 1952, the League joined NBC and Life magazine in sponsoring the first ever televised US presidential debate. In the 1960s and 70s, the League was at the forefront of the movement to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment. And in the 1990s, the League was at the forefront of the fight to pass the National Voter Registration Act. The League of Women Voters of Chicago has continued to work to uphold this amazing legacy and to build upon it for the next generation. League Chicago has been a key player on behalf of civic engagement at the local level. Most recently, we spearheaded an initiative to honor Ida B. Wells's legacy and successfully saw Ida B. Wells Drive unveiled. During the 2019 aldermanic cycle, we partnered with community organizations to coordinate aldermanic forums to inform Chicago voters where candidates stood on the issues that were important to their wards, covering everything from elections and voting to housing and immigration. This year has been a year like no other. The COVID-19 pandemic has forced governments, civic organizations, and citizens to rethink and redesign voting protocols, sometimes from the ground up, a difficult task at the best of times, but especially challenging in a historic presidential election year. But thanks to the amazing commitment of League members, we've adapted and changed how we reach out to voters. Though it may look a little different on Zoom, our programming has continued to give people the information they need to feel confident when they step into that voting booth on election day or sit down at their kitchen table to fill in their mail-in ballot. Like many of our members, I worked as an election judge this past November. I was lucky enough to be assigned to monitor the ballot box. And as I handed out I voted stickers and saw eyes light up behind masks, I was constantly reminded of the power that a single vote has, and beyond that, the power that an informed voter has. The League of Women Voters of Chicago is a volunteer-run organization, and in order to continue to do the important work of both expanding the electorate and informing it, we need your support. You can donate at any time tonight to help us with our mission by texting Centennial 2020 to 41444. That's CENTENNIAL 2020 to 41444. Over the course of this program, we'll hear from some fabulous and inspiring speakers and journey through the 100 years of League of Women Voters of Chicago. I'll now turn it over to Claire Hartfield, who will introduce the history of the League. Claire is the 2019 Coretta Scott King Book Awards author winner and a 2019 Los Angeles Times Book Prize finalist. Her most recent book, A Few Red Drops, The Chicago Race Riot of 1919, has been honored as a Junior Library Guild Choice, a 2019 Illinois Reading Council Top Book, and a Chicago Public Library Best of the Best Books 2018. She's also an active member of the League. Claire, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Anne. Today we celebrate 100 years of Chicago women working through the League of Women Voters to ensure that women play a robust role in shaping our democracy. When we look back to the League's founding, we can see that it didn't just come out of nowhere. In fact, since Chicago's beginnings in the 1800s, women of our city have been front and center in the movement, both local and national, for women's rights. In the 1800s, the prevailing American view was that a woman's place was in the home. But if you looked around Chicago, you would find many smart, passionate women fully engaged in civic life. Some, like Jane Addams, focused on social welfare, creating settlement houses to provide economic and social support for women and children. Others started women's labor unions to demand decent wages and fair conditions for women workers. Among them was Agnes Nestor, who gained national prominence for her leadership in the International Glove Workers Union and a club that included both working women and wealthy women called the Women's Trade Union League. And Margaret Haley, who led the Chicago Teachers Federation, fighting for teachers' rights. Some, like Ida B. Wells, focused on the Black community and equal rights for Black women. Wells's Alpha Suffrage Club registered thousands of Black women voters and is widely acknowledged as instrumental in electing Chicago's first Black alderman. And around the city, many upper-class, well-connected women gathered in women's clubs, using their money and influence to shape the world beyond their homes. These women recognized that the key to success was winning the right to vote, and that their best chance lay in working together. Beginning in 1894, they laid the foundation for women's suffrage, coming together through an organization called the Chicago Political Equality League. Their work picked up steam beginning in 1910 under the leadership of Grace Wilbur Trout. Trout understood that a multi-pronged approach was needed, and she had a great eye for recognizing talent. Under her leadership, the Political Equality League influenced public policy through educating the public and participating in the political process, tools that remain central to the Chicago League of Women Voters' work today. An early, highly successful effort to get the word out was the automobile tour. Over several weeks, carloads of women rode through Chicago's suburbs, raising awareness. At each stop, the women engaged local prominent businessmen and politicians to help them work the crowds. Together, they educated the public about women's suffrage. They raised money to support the effort, and they made sure that local media was there to highlight them in the next day's headlines. And they marched, another effective tool we still use today. There was the Rainy Day Parade, when 5,000 marchers, who were pounding the pavement to demand addition of a women's suffrage plank in the Republican Party platform, got drenched as they made their way down Michigan Avenue. And the famous anecdote about Ida B. Wells and the National Suffrage March in Washington, D.C. Wells was told that because she was Black, she would have to march separately at the back of the parade. Somewhat ironic, since this was a march for equal rights. But Ida was a force to be reckoned with, and ignoring the warning, she joined her fellow marchers in the Illinois delegation, and they welcomed her into their midst. The biggest issue back then was gaining women's suffrage. And in addition to rallying the public, Chicago women worked the halls of political power, as the League still does today. In 1912, savvy Grace Trout became president of the Illinois Equal Suffrage Association and set her sights on Springfield. Trout recalled a ride in a State House elevator with opponents of the suffrage legislation who inadvertently, ignoring her, tipped her off to their strategy to defeat the bill. She promptly took this information to her own powerful allies in the legislature, who successfully countered derailment efforts. And in 1913, 7 years before the ratification of the 19th Amendment, Illinois women won the right to vote for United States president as well as local offices, becoming the first state east of the Mississippi to adopt women's suffrage, in large part due to the tireless and strategic work of the League. With the adoption of the 19th Amendment in 1920, the Chicago Political Equality League had achieved its mission. Chicago's women were now ready to move ahead with the important work of registering all those new voters and educating them about the important role they were newly empowered to play in our democracy. On December 4th, 1920, the Chicago Political Equality League voted to disband and transfer their funds to the newly formed Chicago League of Women Voters. Harriet Taylor Treadwell, president of the Political Equality League, became the first president of the Chicago League of Women Voters. Over the years, through education and advocacy, the League has played an important role on such issues as creation of the United Nations, sponsorship of political debates, advocacy for inclusive, accessible voter registration, and most recently in registering thousands of new voters to keep our democracy strong. In her autobiography, Ida B. Wells shared her vision that eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. The history of the League of Women Voters is a testament to what we can do when we keep our eye on the prize, reminding us of the power of we the people to shape our democracy.
Congratulations to the League of Women Voters on 100 years of wonderful work. We are broad-minded, and we are thrilled to send you our a cappella COVID version of Sister Suffragette.
We're army ranks in restricting Spanx, dauntless crusaders with little thanks.
Though we quite like a man on his own, as a mob they're a swamp of testosterone.
It's a new century, it's a new day. Shoulder to shoulder into the fray.
Our grands and moms went there before us. We're adding voices to their chorus. Time's up for patriarchy.
From RBG to Stormy D, we're fed up with hypocrisy. Each slimy sleaze from coast to coast will choke on his own grabbing boast. Me Too means I'll stand by you, marching side by side. Sisters, we will see this through together and with pride.
No more silence, the moment is prime. Like Queen Maxine, we're reclaiming our time.
Stand up with virtue and vote today.
Shoulder to shoulder into the fray.
Our grands and moms went there before us.
We're adding verses to their chorus.
Time's up.
Time's up.
Time's up for patriarchy. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yay.
Good afternoon. I'm excited to be here to celebrate the 100th centennial birthday of the League of Women Voters. I'm Mahalia Ann Hines. I'm a 35-year educator. I also had the privilege of sitting on the Board of Education for 8 years. I am currently the president of the Common Ground Foundation and a member of the Board of Directors of the Obama Foundation. How excited I am to be a part of this celebration, even if it's a tiny part. I want to say happy birthday to you, These balloons are for you to help you celebrate. I also want to say congratulations to all of the women and the things that you were able to do this year in order to get out the vote. How excited we are to have a woman on the presidential ticket for the first time. We have a woman vice president. I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Nancy Brandt. She was so hardworking and very, very smart. She held the Chicago Board of Education accountable, and she made them more transparent. We will definitely miss her, but she will not be forgotten. Happy birthday, League of Women Voters of Chicago.
Good afternoon. I am Margaret Herring. In 1973, I moved to Chicago for a job. And in 1976, a friend recommended that I join the League of Women Voters of Chicago. The League introduced me to Chicago and Illinois governments and to many friends. I have served in many capacities for the Chicago League. In the early years of this century, I was a co-president and then president of the Chicago League. Now I chair its City Government Committee. Our members observe meetings of the City Council and of selected committees of that council. It is in committees in which much of the discussion of issues occurs. We invite League members to join us as we Zoom to meetings, our own and the council's. I am honored to introduce Jill Wine-Banks. Ms. Wine-Banks is an attorney and has worked in many areas of the law. Her career is marked by many notable firsts. She was the only woman of 3 prosecutors during the Watergate affair. Her memoir, The Watergate Girl, tells her very personal story of that time. During the Carter administration, Ms. Wine-Banks was the first woman to serve as Consul General of the Army. Among other firsts in her career, Ms. Wine-Banks was the first woman to serve as Executive Director of the American Bar Association, and the first woman to serve as Solicitor General of Illinois and as Deputy General of Illinois. The League of Women Voters of Chicago is happy to welcome Jill Wine-Banks.
Thank you, Margaret, for that wonderful introduction. I'm really pleased to be here. The League of Women Voters of Chicago was formed in 1920 to help women take a larger role in public affairs after they won the right to vote. That means it's your 100th anniversary, along with that of the 19th Amendment. So I had to start with wishing you both a very happy 100th anniversary. And tell you how excited I am to be here to celebrate that anniversary and all the advances that you've helped make possible for women in politics. And that includes our new Vice President-elect, soon to be our Vice President, Kamala Harris. You've been a key player in enhancing the power of women, so thank you and congratulations on that. Tonight, I've been asked to talk about transparency in government and its importance to you. That's a topic that means a lot to me, as well as to your own organization. I'm on the board of the Better Government Association, which is why I'm wearing this BGA pin, and I also chair the Policy Committee. Transparency in government is a chief focus of BGA's mission, so I'm really glad to have the opportunity to talk about it with you tonight. But my interest goes back long before I joined the board of BGA. It goes back to my Watergate experience, where I saw firsthand the dangers of campaign finance with no transparency. Let me explain why I'm saying that. First of all, let me remind you that Nixon's Committee to Re-elect the President, known as CREEP, paid for the break-in with cash that was kept in safes in the White House and at CREEP headquarters, safes that overflowed with money from secret donors. Secondly, not only could donors be secret, but there were no limits on how much money they could contribute. That led to having too much cash, in my opinion, and as a result, they didn't have to think about what they were spending the money on. When Attorney General Mitchell, who later became the chief officer for the committee to re-elect, was presented with the opportunity to commit this break-in, he approved it. He didn't care that it was going to be spending maybe $250,000 to $500,000. The original budget was $1 million, and all he said was, well, that's too much money. Cut the budget and we can do it. He didn't think about it being illegal, and he didn't think about whether he had enough money. He knew he had tons of money available. Had he not had that excess cash, I think there wouldn't have been a break-in. So I start with the perception that having transparency is really important, because if that money had been transparent, maybe there wouldn't have been a break-in. Of course, after Watergate, legislation came about to limit how much money someone could contribute and to require transparency. Unfortunately, Citizens United, the Supreme Court case, completely undid all of the Watergate reforms, something that I hope the new administration will take into account and consider going back to what we had before. Now, I'd like to move on to some more current examples of why transparency in government is so important. And before I actually get to the real topic, I just want to say, I mentioned I'm wearing my Better Government Association pin, but I considered wearing one of these other pins. I considered wearing one that showed breaking the glass ceiling, because you at the League of Women Voters of Chicago have helped to make it possible that we could have a vice president-elect who is a female. And that's one of the pins I thought about wearing. But the other is an original suffragette pin, which said votes for women. And that, to me, is a lot of what you stand for. So let's talk now about why transparency is important to democracy. And the first is the right to vote is, of course, fundamental to a democracy. And you can't have an intelligent vote if you don't have information. So if you don't have transparency, how do you get the facts so that you can vote intelligently? The same is true about our system of justice. You need to know facts to know if justice is being done in the courts, by the Department of Justice in the United States, by the attorney generals and the DAs in the various states. Think about the Flynn case and what we know because there is public records. Think about what we might not have understood if the record hadn't been public. Think about the Roger Stone case and what we know because things are public. Think back to the very first pardon that President Trump issued. You may not remember, it was Sheriff Joe Arpaio, and he was convicted of doing something against a court order. And again, we wouldn't know that he had gotten pardoned if it wasn't a public thing. We wouldn't have known that his crime involved hurting justice in America. So I think it's important for all those reasons. The Freedom of Information Act and the Open Meetings Act are two of the most important tools to assure transparency. Since COVID, there have been a number of attacks on that protection in Illinois. No city, no state, no jurisdiction likes FOIA. It's expensive to comply, it takes staff and time, and the results often lead to discovery of information that causes damages to have to be paid by the very entity that released the information. So of course they don't like it, and it's no surprise that COVID was used as an excuse to stop complying. And that's what happened. The Chicago City Council said, FOIA is not an essential service during time of COVID. And the mayor, who was a BGA board member before she became mayor, agreed with it. And think about the things that we wouldn't be allowed to know if FOIA wasn't a requirement at this time. Think about what it means about knowing how many people are getting sick, both in nursing homes, But even just at schools and elsewhere, without FOIA, that's something that could be kept secret. Police accountability is a very big issue for FOIA. That's what we need in order to get the records of a pattern or practice of misbehavior. How do we know what police officers are good and which ones need to be removed from the force? You need a pattern or practice of bad behavior to take action against somebody. The city contract with the police union said that after 5 years, all records of misbehavior would be destroyed. Well, if that's true, that means that someone could be offending for 3 or 4 years and it wouldn't be quite enough to remove them, but then it would all be destroyed and you'd be starting all over again. That would be a serious problem for maintaining the safety of the police force. There was an effort, by the way, to pass a law to exempt FOIA during COVID. The BGA intervened, we lobbied, and we stopped the bill. And in terms of the police, I want to say that as a result of negotiations, the case was settled, and it was settled on the grounds that public interest superseded the police contract, and that the police contract could not undo the public interest in full disclosure, so that that provision of the contract can no longer apply. The same thing applies with the Open Meetings Act, or OMA. For example, there were city council meetings being held right in the early days of COVID and the lockdown. And they were not being recorded and they were not being reported, and public attendance wasn't being allowed because no one knew about it. And then we at the BGA found out about at least one meeting that happened, and we found out about it because it made the newspapers because there was some obscenities spoken by the mayor and by one of the aldermen. And that made the news, and that alerted us that meetings were going on. We sued from the BGA on the grounds that OMA applied. That case is still pending. Another group went to what's known as the Public Access Counselor, who is in Illinois, the Attorney General. And the Attorney General ruled that the meeting was a meeting and that you couldn't claim that because it was being done by Zoom, that it wasn't a meeting. It still was a meeting, and that OMA had to be complied with. But let's look at some federal examples as well. Think about the information that we're getting from the CDC that we wouldn't be getting if it was up to President Trump and the people who implement his FOIA compliance. The same thing would be true with any of the immigration things. I don't think we would know anything about children in cages or people being held up at the border, about all of the things that are going on that we've learned as a result of transparency. Even things like the redactions in the Mueller report that have been undone as a result of FOIA. So to me, that says this is an important issue, something that you at the League of Women Voters care about, something that we at the Better Government Association care about. And I hope all of you listening tonight can now see the importance of these laws and protections for our democracy. Thank you for all that you do to make it possible to have the democracy we have.
Hello, I'm Tony Preckwinkle, President of the Cook County Board of Commissioners. I'd like to congratulate the League of Women Voters on a very special milestone, their 100th anniversary. This is an achievement to be extremely proud of, a century of good work. This year also marks the 100th anniversary of the passage of the 19th Amendment, which guaranteed and protected women's right to vote. It's fitting that both of these centennials occurred in a presidential election year, which saw record voter turnout as we elected the first woman vice president, Senator Harris. This work would not be possible without organizations like the League of Women Voters mobilizing their communities and upholding the values of our democracy. It's always been a privilege to work with the local chapter of the League of Women Voters, and I look forward to the good work ahead. Thank you.
It's Jane Ruby again. I'm on screen right now because I have the task of trying to get you all to push that button down there below on your screen that says donate. This is a fundraiser, and we're trying to raise much needed funds to keep all the good work going. Just for your entertainment, however, I thought I might mention something fun. The overarching theme of our program is then and now, and I just wanted you to see what they were doing back in 1970 to raise funds during the 50th anniversary of the League. Yeah, as you can see, they put up a suffragette and they said they would strip the suffragette as you gave money. I think it's hilarious. Actually, I really can't believe they did that. But there's a certain cheeky spirit that is consistent with the history of the suffragist movement and beyond. But I do have to say one thing about what they were doing. Back then, they were trying to raise millions of dollars, while we would love to get $100,000. Just $100,000, $1,000 for every year the League has been in existence. Now we hope we can start our next 100 years with $100,000 that'll keep us going for some time. Thank you for hanging around for this event and all of your continued support then, now, and beyond. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Sophia King, Alderman of the 4th Ward of the City of Chicago. Just want to take a moment to acknowledge the League of Women Voters Chicago on its centennial anniversary. I especially want to let them, and all of you, know how grateful I am for their role in renaming Congress Parkway to Ida B. Wells Drive. The first new street named in over 50 years in the city of Chicago, and the first street to be named after a woman and or person of color in downtown Chicago ever. Ida B. Wells, an African-American woman, was a suffragist, civil rights advocate, and anti-lynching champion, and the League of Women Voters Chicago played a tremendous role in helping to elevate this woman to her proper place in history by advocating and educating so that young women and girls could understand her contribution to this city, to this country, and the world. Thank you, League of Women Voters Chicago. Without you, the renaming of this street to Ida B. Wells Drive would not be possible. I was grateful and honored to partner with you in doing so. Wishing you 100 more years of advocacy and continued work in our communities. Again, thank you very much.
Hello, I'm State Senator Robert Peters of the 13th District,
And let me first start off by saying happy 100 years to League of Women Voters of Chicago. For me, I want to sort of share a story about how I first got into the seat, and the League of Women Voters were doing a legislative interview with me, and we were talking and getting to know each other. Specifically, it was about an issue involving IDs for young folks, particularly young folks of color. And we found a connection, a sort of bond, because for me personally, I care deeply about issues of DCFS and our youth in care. I'm adopted. I say I'm the cousin of our youth in care. And so there was this connection of saying, when it comes to youth coming out of, foster care and the system, they have trouble getting the services they need. And that's something usually most people don't advocate for. It's people who are usually forgotten. And when I presented this to the folks at the League of Women Voters, which was an amazingly diverse table surrounding me and, passionate about about these issues, they ran with it. They said this is something that they need to take up. And we found that connection and that bond. Another part that gets me is my first ever candidates forum at Montgomery Place, which was an extremely democratic affair. It involved everybody who was there to be able to contribute their questions. It was fair in terms of how we were presented with questions. It was looked at issues across the board, issues around public safety and policing to environmental, like the Clean Energy Jobs Act. And it dug deep at the issues that matter to most people within the district and, to be honest with you, within the state. We got so deep, we talked about the financials of the state. And as you know right now, it's important for us to think about that. And that was thought of pretty much early on in my campaign. So I am so happy to work with the League of Women Voters and so happy to work with the leaders of the organization, and particularly excited to say that over the last 100 years, we've seen so much systemic changes. And hopefully over the next 100 years, we're able to continue the work on making that systemic change. And that'll happen because of organizations like the League of Women Voters of Chicago. So happy 100, happy centennial, and as always, thank you.
During the 2019 municipal election cycle, in addition to aldermanic forums, the League was a partner in the DuSable Plans Not Platitudes, a conversation at the intersection of racial equity and public policy mayoral forum, and 2 more forums during the runoff. The Race for Chicago Mayor, the People's Forum, in conjunction with ABC7 Chicago and Univision Chicago, and the Choice for Mayor 2019 with WTTW News and Chicago State University. It was an historic election. We are pleased to now introduce the Honorable Lori Lightfoot, 56th Mayor of Chicago, who graciously agreed to continue the tradition of the mayoral State of the City keynote address. Since assuming office, Mayor Lightfoot has undertaken an ambitious agenda of expanding opportunity and inclusive economic growth across Chicago's neighborhoods and communities, with early accomplishments including landmark ethics and good governance reforms, worker protection legislation, and closing a record $838 million budget gap, as well as key investments in education, public safety, and financial stability. Mayor Lightfoot has also placed Chicago on the path to a $15 minimum wage by 2021. In response to the unprecedented COVID-19 crisis, Mayor Lightfoot has led a coordinated citywide response across government, business, and community organizations to effectively address its spread and broader public impact, including the creation of the Racial Equity Rapid Response Team, the COVID-19 Recovery Task Force, and other actions. Please welcome Mayor Lightfoot.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mayor Lori Lightfoot, and I'm honored to be this year's keynote speaker for the League of Women Voters of Chicago's State of the City Centennial Edition. We are meeting during a time like no other, one where COVID-19 has stripped away our sense of normalcy, taking the lives and livelihoods away from too many of our residents, and continues to demand our city find new ways to protect and provide for our most vulnerable communities. During this time, however, we've also been forced to reckon with the deadly consequences of police brutality and systemic racism following the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, among too many others. Events which have pricked our collective consciousness to the hard work we still need to do to create a country where Black people and people of color can live their lives safely and free from fear, and have every opportunity to realize their full potential and exercise their God-given right to simply live their lives. Though the events that have occurred over the past 8 months have exposed the fault lines of our city and society, they have also encouraged us to ramp up our efforts to eliminate systemic inequity once and for all. This work must start within our institutions, many of which have been designed to stymie or prevent the success of minority groups for far too long, leaving them without critical foundational supports such as educational and employment opportunities, along with access to safe and affordable housing, healthcare, upward mobility, and so much more. Just as Dr. Helene Gale, CEO of the Chicago Community Trust, has pointed out previously, the racial and ethnic wealth gaps we face cannot be fixed with a single policy or program. Instead, we must work to create a multifaceted, systems-focused approach that will look at the problems our residents face and implement informed, holistic solutions. I'm proud to say that this approach has been that of my administration at our core since day one, and has only increased since COVID-19 came to our city because we've chosen to embrace this crisis as a once-in-a-generation opportunity it is to right the systemic wrongs fully and completely now. For starters, we've doubled down on our work with initiatives such as our signature neighborhood development program, Invest Southwest, which brings government, business, philanthropic, and of course community leaders together to draw out the untapped potential of our city's neglected south and west sides. It gives Black and brown residents the resources and support they need to rise above the impacts of generational poverty and disinvestment. Despite these challenges COVID-19 has presented, Invest Southwest has been the organizing force behind multiple projects already completed or underway. This includes affordable housing projects such as the 4400 Grove, a mixed-use $38 million development in our historic Bronzeville neighborhood that not only offers more than half of its 84 units as affordable and public housing, but 16,000 square feet of retail and commercial space, which by the time 4400 Grove opened in the beginning of October, had already been leased to 8 community-based businesses, all of which are Black-owned. Invest Southwest projects have been critical in our ongoing work to increase employment opportunities for residents from underrepresented backgrounds. For example, we recently came together to break ground on the terminal, a $40 to $50 million investment in our West Humboldt Park community that will redevelop an industrial loft and warehouse space into a 240,000 square foot creative campus. Upon the completion, this project will create 200 jobs and make West Humboldt Park an innovation hub where Black and brown entrepreneurs, artists, and visionaries have the opportunity to bring their dreams to life. Projects like the 4400 Grove, the terminal, and the numerous other developments we've launched over the past 8 months have the potential to revitalize communities that need it the most and enhance the impact of our ongoing COVID-19 supports, which also seek to tackle the deep-rooted issues of socioeconomic inequality. In response to the appalling, disproportionate impact the COVID-19 virus was having on our minority communities, we also launched the Racial Equity Rapid Response Team, a network of individuals and organizations to provide dedicated support to these communities in the form of targeted education, outreach, and so much more. This effort in particular highlights the value of listening to our residents and working together to find holistic solutions to the challenges they face. During the pandemic, we've also partnered with various businesses, organizations like the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership, and our great City Colleges system to not only create much needed jobs, but provide residents from underrepresented backgrounds with critical employment resources such as career counseling, job training, professional development, or more. While these initiatives have allowed us to make progress in becoming a more equitable and inclusive city, we know more work can and must be done. We still have a long way to go before we can completely ensure that each and every Chicagoan has the same access and opportunities they deserve to pursue higher education, start their own businesses, and build the wealth they need to lead successful lives. Allow me to illustrate exactly why we must continue this work. When our Black and brown entrepreneurs and their businesses thrive, they enrich not only their communities, but our city as a whole, giving both our residents what they need to fulfill their wants, needs, and dreams, and allowing our city to remain the diverse, innovative powerhouse that it is. When people see that Chicago is thriving, they will want to come to call our city home. When residents have everything that they need to thrive in their communities, they will want to continue calling our city home. When we create and pursue initiatives that stand to enhance the economic vibrancy of our communities, while simultaneously addressing the systemic issues that allow disinvestment to fester, we all win. As we move along our path out of this pandemic, we must continue to be guided by our North Stars of equity and inclusion and step up to do what's right for all of our residents. Only then will we be able to not only recover from this crisis, but do so in a way that makes us stronger and more resilient than we've ever been. We've come a long way this year. We've met a lot of challenges, and I am confident that we are on our way to be a better, stronger, more resilient, and more equitable city. Thank you, and please continue to be safe.
I'm Barbara Flynn Curry, and I congratulate the League of Women Voters of Chicago on 100 glorious years of citizenship, of civil responsibility. I joined the League when I was 20. I was the mother of a 1-year-old living in Washington, D.C., and my husband wasn't quite enough adult companionship for me. My mother had been a member of the League, and so that's why I turned to the League. And I found in the League was an organization that helped me develop my interests and my skills in figuring out public policy. We were looking at that time at the question, what should a sales tax encompass? And at that time in Washington, D.C., and still in the state of Illinois, we taxed goods. We taxed the lawnmower, but we didn't tax the lawn care service. So that was the kind of we talked about. And what's great about the League is that it's a bottoms-up organization. We decide what the right answer to important public policy questions are. At the same time, of course, we continue our commitment to empower voters, to empower it, and to make sure that our democracy works. When I came to Chicago, I immediately transferred my membership to the Chicago League of Women Voters. And in fact, I became a vice president of the Chicago League, and I was the editor of our monthly newsletter, The Chicago Voter. Gave me what it took for me to figure out how to become a politician. I eventually ran for state representative, and it was the work that you gave me through the League that made me feel confident to the task. You showed me how to look at public policy, how to read about public policy, how to make the right decisions. I eventually became the first woman to hold the job of majority leader of the Illinois House of Representatives. And I give great credit to the League because it was all your work that made that happen. So here's to the first 100 years, and let's talk about the next 100 too. Congratulations, Chicago League of Women Voters.
Good evening. I'm Helene Gabelnick, League of Women Voters of Chicago Voter Service Chair. We are pleased to present the Making Democracy Work Award to Lance Goff, retiring Executive Director of the Chicago Board of Election Commissioners. Some of his colleagues are also here joining us in our tribute. In my position with League, I help coordinate many of our voter service activities. And for the past 6 years, I've been an observer at the Chicago Board of Election Commissioners meetings. Our voter service contingent has registered thousands of new voters at high schools, city colleges, universities, events such as concerts, festivals, and marches, and at museums and senior living facilities. We also provide voters with the information they need in various ways. You've already heard about our candidates forums, but we also prepare and distribute thousands of bookmarks with election information, give presentations on election information for schools, civic groups, and other venues. We put information on our website and distribute it via social media. For this election, we did some presentations via Zoom. Every election, we provide our members with credentials to become poll watchers, while others serve as election judges. This year, because so many of us were in lockdown due to the pandemic, we tried something new. Under the umbrella of election protection, League members volunteered to monitor and report disinformation and misinformation posted on Facebook and Twitter. Common Cause then forwarded these reports to the social media companies for correction. We're always looking for new ways to make sure voters have access to their ballots and access to reliable and accurate information. First, in our tribute, we welcome Charles Holliday Jr., the new Executive Director of the Chicago Board of Election Commissioners.
So good evening. Lance, I would like to congratulate you on your award, and also thank you for all the opportunities that you afforded me since I've been here at the Board of Election, beginning as Assistant Supervisor of the Binding Department, then Assistant Manager of the Registration Department, being advanced to the Manager of the Registration Department, and from there becoming the Assistant Executive Director of the Chicago Board of Election to my newly appointed position as Executive Director. I hold you in high esteem and just thank you for all your leadership and your guidance, and just looking forward to keeping your legacy and all that you led this board to up front. And now I would like to present to you Jim Allen, Communications Director / Strategic Planner for the Chicago Board of Elections. Jim?
Charles, thank you so much. And thank you to the League of Women Voters, but especially thank you, Lance Goff. This is an honor that you've deserved for many years, and it's great to see you receive this tribute as you're finishing up one of the most miraculous years in an otherwise stellar career, serving Chicago's 1.5 million voters, and also being one of the top election administrators, one of the go-to people who are considered one of the leaders in fair, transparent, and secure election administration, not only in the United States, but around the world. Charles is one and perhaps the best example of how you have mentored so many people over the years so that the agency could grow and adapt to changes and bring in new blood and reorganize and tackle several projects. Just to name a few: election day registration, automatic voter registration, electronic poll books, advancing us through 3 different generations of voting equipment, and providing some of the most secure and transparent elections so that even in close contests that resulted in recounts, the records held up to the closest and tightest of scrutiny. It's been a pleasure to serve beside you as we tackled all of these issues. And I want to thank you for your guidance, because you always had an open door. You always had an open mind. You always had a light touch. You always counseled us to be patient and to help evolve the system so that change, real positive change, could happen. And you were stingy when it came to criticism, but generous when it came to compliments and praise of your staff. You shared the successes of the board and always recognized all the people who you were bringing up behind you. You're leaving the Chicago Election Board 1,000 times better than it was when you first arrived more than 32 years ago, and even before then in a prior service before you were executive director. So on behalf of the Chicago voters and behalf of the League of Women Voters, thank you again. This is an honor that's well-deserved. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Betty Magnus, a longtime friend of the board and colleague, and a board member with the League of Women Voters of Chicago.
Thank you, Jim. May I begin by saying what an honor it is to present this award to my friend of over 30 years, Mr. Lance Gall. I met him through Alice Tegay, fondly called the Queen of Voter Registration. After she passed, I continued working with him as he constantly strived to make voting easier and better for Chicagoans. Part of that struggle was with the League working to gain voting rights for pretrial detainees in county jails in Illinois. They are incarcerated persons not yet convicted and therefore eligible to register and vote. Last year in August, when the governor signed SB 2090, giving them not only the right to register, but a polling place in the jail, we at the League were overjoyed. But I also remember the emotion expressed by Lance as he choked up while giving remarks. It had been a long time coming, and his passion for the voters of Chicago was evident. As a result, this past November, our election totals contained the votes of over 2,500 inmates at Cook County. I am so happy to present the League of Women Voters 2020 Making Democracy Work Award to Mr. Lance Gall, Executive Director of the Chicago Board of Election Commissioners. Thank you for all you've done in over 40 years at the board.
Hello, everybody. It is an honor to be here to get this award from the League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters has been very important to the Chicago Board of Election, and especially to me. You know, you need an advocacy group to look over your shoulders and make sure you're doing what's right and to tell you what's wrong. And the League has done that. And if it wasn't without the League's help, we wouldn't be where we're at today. Right now, I was told that the Chicago Board of Election, the EAC is going to give an award to the Chicago Board of Elections for the type of work we've done for this election. You know, I'm retiring at probably the worst election the city has ever seen, in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of a presidential election where there's been a lot of controversy. And without the League's help, on a constant visual, making sure we're doing what's right, we wouldn't be there right now. So many people I need to thank in doing this that have been behind me for they said 42 years I've been with the Chicago Board of Elections, 32 years as the executive director. I've been, because of what I do at the Chicago Board, I've been recognized at places around the world. As president of IACRIAT, I went to Plymouth, England, and spoke there. I've been into Albania twice for election assessments. I've been to Hong Kong when that switchover happened. I've been to South Africa when they're talking about putting electronic voting. There's so many places. I've been in South America, all over the United States. As president of IACRIAT, we had conventions in almost every single state. And it's been a great ride. And I just want to thank everybody for all the help. And just to let you know, I haven't passed on. I'm moving to greener pastures because of this. I hope to help out all the advocacy groups and be part of them. There's so many things that I take my job 1,000%. I'm supposed to be non-political. I'm supposed to be nonpartisan, and I've done that. Well, now it's time that my voice can be heard, because there's so many things that I think we need to concentrate on that I have to step out of this office in order to say. So you will be hearing from me. I'm not going to keep my mouth shut. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for everything you've done for me, and all my friends, Helena, Betty, Jim Allen, Charles Holliday. Charles Holliday is the perfect person to take over this position. He's been here for, God, I've been with Charles for over almost 30 years. And he's a gentleman who will listen to the advocacy groups, and will act on that. The one thing that Harold Washington told me when I took over this position, he said, Lance, if you take care of the community will take care of you. And those are words that I've lived by. And I just want to thank the League of Women Voters for everything. You've been not only a great partner, but a friend to this agency, and a definitely friend to me. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Hi, my name's Genevieve Fears, and I would like to wish you, League of Women Voters, a very happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, League of Women Voters. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, League of Women Voters. Happy birthday to you. Now let's do the COVID edition. Happy birthday to you. Drink up. Happy birthday to you. Blue's fine. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Two's fine too. Happy birthday to you. Rock it out, ladies. Happy birthday to you. Why not three? Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
Thank you all so much for being here tonight. I want to take a moment to acknowledge our members, especially those who've been part of the League for over 50 years. Their commitment is a reminder to us all of the power of collective action, and I hope to one day join their ranks. Thanks to all of our speakers. I hope you all found in them a renewed sense of dedication to the democratic process that underpins both our country and our work as an organization. As a reminder, we need your help to continue to do the crucial work of making sure that everyone who has the right to vote is registered and can vote informed. You can donate by using the donate button below. Our State of the City Committee has done an absolutely incredible job putting this evening's program together and deserves a hearty congratulations and sincere thank you for all of the work they've done. The committee was chaired by Jane Ruby with Linda Hannessian as the fundraising chair. The members of the committee were Vanessa Bush-Ford, Stephanie Mack, Catherine Mardikes, Lauren Rudolph, Marlis Sala, Julie Shelton, and Sharon Welch. We also could not have pulled this off without the essential assistance of our production manager, Matthew Brouillet, and our indispensable social media coordinator, Sophie Mucaccio. So once again, thank you so much for being here. Your support is essential to the continuation of our work. I hope you all look forward to the next 100 years as much as I do. Thanks again and have a good night.